Welcome to the Ansible for Network Automation series. This series has been built with the complete beginner in mind, and it's going to be divided into two parts. The first of which is going to be diving right into GNS3 labs, and the second part is going to be going into Ansible and network automation and programmability concepts. The reason that I'm doing the lab first is to get you started quickly, and by the end of it, you're going to be executing Ansible commands and playbooks in a full GNS3 lab. In order to do that, first I'm going to show you how to install and configure GNS3. Then I'm going to show you how to get the network automation appliance installed on GNS3. And then we're going to start executing Ansible ad hoc commands and playbooks on topologies. And then the second part of the course, we're going to go through the theory and the concepts. All right, let's get it started. Here's a little bit about me for those that are completely new to the channel. I have over 10 years experience. I am a double CCIE in route switch and collab, and I'm relatively new to network automation and programmability, but I'm fully committed to that being my next future direction, and you're going to see a lot of network automation and programmability content, including Python, on this channel. And the reason that we're going to focus on getting going quickly and do the labs before the concepts is because network engineers tend to have a massive perceived barrier when it comes to automation and programmability, myself included. That and the bottom line is that if you can get the labs built and start automating, it's just going to help you learn faster. Also, I'm going to assume that part of the reason that you're watching this video is that you already understand the general whys for network automation, why use network automation. But I just want to touch on it briefly anyway. As I'm sure that some of you have heard many times by now, network automation is the future. It helps reduce errors and risk. It helps make changes faster and deployment smoother. It leads to overall cost reduction and helps organizations manage networks with less. So obviously there's numerous benefits for organizations to use it. And then on an individual level, us engineers, obviously we want to keep our skills up to date so that we can keep putting food on the table. That, and once you get started with it, it is fun to do. Also, if you are just starting out, Ansible is a great place to start. And that is opposed to getting started with Python directly. And the reason for that is, if you look at the definition here, Ansible itself is not a language. It's an automation engine that's built on the Python language. The end result of this is that it's very modular and you don't have to know all the details of Python in order to use it. There's also already robust functionality built into the existing playbooks, and it is completely free. Ansible does have a paid-for product called Ansible Tower, but that's mostly for corporate use and doesn't have anything to do with what we're going to be doing here. And before we go get to the downloads, it is important to distinguish that there's two components to GNS3. There's a client component and a server component. The client component is basically the front-end management interface. It's the part that you're going to be interacting with that you use to import everything and build the topologies. Whereas the server is basically the back-end portion where the iOS instances and the virtual devices are actually running. And this is where VM Workstation comes in. All right, well, let's get to it. So we're out at gns3.com. Now you can look in the lower left-hand corner and see that we are currently on version 2.2.10 at the time that this is being recorded. So before we get to the download, we're going to go to documentation. And I'm just going to click on getting started with Windows. And the main things I want to call attention to is the supported operating systems that you can use. You can actually put it on Windows Server if you wanted to do that. I'm going to be installing it on Windows 10. And then they do have three different sets of requirements: minimum, recommended, and optimal requirements. You can see for optimal requirements, they do recommend an i7 or i9 CPU. And I'll also say this: if you do intend to use the newer iOS versions in your lab and use a lot of devices, it does tax the system quite a bit, especially when the devices are starting up. All right, so now on to the download. And I'm just going to go right here and click download. Oh, and when we come back to download the VM, which is not what we're going to do right now, this would be the link for that. All right, so here it asks you to log in. And then it takes you to this screen. Since I'm downloading on Windows, I'm going to click right here. And then you can see that it immediately started my download down here in the lower left. All right, now we can see that this is done downloading. We're going to show in folder. Now I'm going to double click to start the installation. Now for the most part, this is just going to be a next type installation. I'm going to go with mostly the defaults. There's one thing that pops up at the end from SolarWinds that I'm going to say no to. So I did click start at the end of the installation so that it goes into GNS3, and then it opens up into this wizard right here, which I'm going to cancel out of. And this is good news. So what you want to see when you first start it up is this green dot, which basically just means that the client has installed and started up successfully. All right, so just a quick slide here to address some problems. Now it is recommended that you have your Windows Firewall disabled and disable any antivirus. I personally do have antivirus running, but I've disabled the Windows Firewall. And if you do run into problems where you're not getting the green dot, one solution can be to stop the GNS3 program or restart your computer entirely. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is completely verify the installation by using some of the default devices to create a basic topology, set up some IP addresses, and then ping those IP addresses. Now I'm probably going to speed this up and put some music to it, but there will be a detailed description of exactly what I do if you want to follow the steps in the description of the video. So now we have successful pings between those devices, so I'm going to take that as everything is set up correctly. All right, the next thing that we're going to look at is going to be the Dynamips images. So I'm out at GNS3.com. I'm going to go click on documentation. And then I'm going to search for Dynamips. Click on this top result here, Cisco IS images for Dynamips. So this page is going to serve as the guide for the Dynamips images. And what Dynamips is it used to be the only images that would run on the old school GNS3. Now, of course, you can use all of the new school images, but these ones will still work just fine. And quite frankly, if your only intent was to do network automation labs, the route switch functionality that I intend to use here is only going to be very, very basic, and the Dynamips images can accommodate that easily. However, if you also intend to, learn the modern enterprise networking iOS technologies, then you should probably try and get the new images. Regardless, this is the page that's going to be your resource. It's going to tell you all of the recommended versions. So here's the recommended images. Now, when you're importing these into GNS3, this idle PC value is also going to be something that's important. So they do have a button on GNS3, and I'll show you this when we get to this point too, where you can click on that and then it will help find the value. Or what you can do is, since I have a 3725, you can just come and copy this, or I suppose you could copy it per the exact version that you have. I think this is the one that I have. So I'll copy this. There is one other thing. When you're creating the appliance within GNS3 in order to use it, you do have to specify the amount of RAM as well. So this is going to be the guide to tell you how much RAM your specific image needs. And then another important question relative to the Dynamips images is how to get them. Now, the best way to get them has always been to download them off of Cisco.com. If your Cisco ID is associated with a service contract that has the permissions to allow you to download. You've always been able to go and download the images that you want. Now, I haven't gone and verified this, but I have heard that a lot of the Dynamips images that are considered to be the best images are now unavailable on Cisco.com. And so I haven't verified this. I'm not sure which ones are there or not there. But if you can't download them off of Cisco.com, there is still a couple other ways to get them. So the next best way to get these images would be to obtain one of the physical devices and then download the image off of the physical device. And if all else fails, there are ways to find these on the internet if you are resourceful. There are communities where it's, GNS3 labbers sharing these images. But the main thing to emphasize is that however you get them, you have to get them yourself. Now, I do have one C3725 image, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build a real basic topology and get that working in order to further verify that everything is indeed set up correctly. So now I've gone through and you can see that it has all the neighbors that I showed. You can see the loop backs of these other ones. And then we'll do a ping. Let's see, ping 10.3.3.3. All right, so then that can ping all the way through R1 to R3, and then ping 10.2.2.2, because that's the loop back all the way on 2. It's not directly connected to it. And so there is end-to-end connectivity. Okay, so it looks like GNS3 is functioning well. And again, I'm going to have all those steps in the details of the description, so if you want to duplicate it, you'll be able to just paste in the commands and do it. Oh, and there is one other important thing. If you want to save the configurations, like let's say you're working on a topology and you want to shut it down, turn the computer off, and work on it at a later time, GNS3 is continually saving what you do with the topology, meaning how all the devices are hooked up, what devices are in the topology, but the individual configuration on all of the individual devices must be saved, right? So if I wanted to save this, I would have to go to all the devices and hit WR for write mem in order to save it. Now I'll be able to shut down the topology like this. Turns all this off, start a new blank project, and I would still be able to come back to it later and load it up, and it would be just as it was. All right, so I think that's going to do it for this video. With respect to the installation, we downloaded and installed the GNS3 client. We created a basic topology with default devices, and then we imported a C3725 Dynamips image and created a basic topology. In the upcoming videos, we're going to go to the next steps in our installation. We're going to go download VM Workstation Pro. We're going to download and integrate the GNS3 VM. Then we're going to go get the viral images. We're going to download and install the network automation device and build and automate network topologies. By the end of the next video, we will be executing Ansible commands. I'm hoping that you're finding this informative and helpful. If so, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.